Members of City Council, please attend the call meeting of the City Council to be held in the 6th floor conference room, 801 Crawford Street, 6 p.m. Monday, March 7, 2016, for the purpose of a public work session. In addition, you may consider a motion to go into closed meeting by order of the mayor. Mr. Cherry, Mr. Edmonds.
Here.
Excuse me, Dr. Edmonds.
It's okay.
Mr. Meeks, Mr. Moody,
Here.
Ms. Simmons, Dr. Whitaker, Mayor Wright,
Present.
Dr. Pat.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, during this evening's public work session, we have a presentation by Davenport and Company. During the February 23rd public work session, I shared with you that the city staff was working with Davenport and Company and identified a variety of existing bond issues that are candidates for refinancing. Tonight, we have Mr. David Rose with us from Davenport and Company, the city's financial advisory firm, to present details and schedules on the city's potential bond refunding opportunities. Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Dr. Patton, Mayor, members of council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I think everyone should have a copy in front of them of what you'll see up on the screen. I will be brief. I just have about 4 or 5 pages. I guess the old saying, if you're explaining, you're losing. We don't have a lot of explaining to do. This is, as Dr. Patton indicated, a potential opportunity as interest rates since the beginning of the new calendar year have actually moved down. And as a result of that, as you know, we have regularly monitored your debt portfolio. So with that being said, we wanted to call to your attention just a few critical points. One of those is right there in the middle, and that is the bellwether, if you would, which is a 10-year Treasury, United States Treasury. That has actually been moving below 2%, and that's sort of an indicator, if you would, why we call it a bellwether, of the fact that interest rates have been favorable and allow us a potential opportunity to save some money. With that being said, the second bullet point there is the city has a long-standing policy that any time a debt instrument goes below interest rates that will produce what we call a 3% or higher present value savings, it is important and incumbent on us to work with your staff, bring it to you, and ask for your consideration that we follow your policy, and that is try to put ourselves as quickly as possible into position to refinance. So with that being said, we have identified roughly 5 distinct series of bonds over 2 different bond issues in 2009 and 2010 that have upwards right now of about $55 million that for the moment, I think that's the critical point, for the moment exceed 3% present value savings. And that present value savings is always already factoring in all the costs of issuance. So it's the net savings. It's what you actually would get to keep. Mm-hmm. That said, if all 55 were to remain a candidate over what would be the next 60 days, roughly, we would be seeing a savings of about 1.5, 1.6 million or higher. Now, I'd like to point out, it's 5 distinct series, so pieces of that could fall away. We would only move forward if there were, again, 3% present value savings on any of the series that we're talking about. So this issue could be a fraction of that 55 million. It could be all 55 million. For the moment, we don't see it being any higher than roughly 55 million. I want to point that out. Most of it is in the general fund. When we say very nominal, we're talking a very small fraction of dollars. We certainly could provide that to you in some of the other pieces of the golf, parking, water, and sewer fund. So again, and the last thing I think is very, very important for everyone to know, we're not talking about extending any of the existing debt. We're simply exchanging a higher interest rate, and I'll give you that for a minute, for lower interest rates. Okay? So the second page here just shows you where interest rates have moved. You can see there when we did the 2015 general obligation bond issue back roughly about a year ago. We're once again back in that mode. You may ask yourselves, well, why didn't we refinance some of these pieces last year? That has to do with the sort of the call provision, when these pieces of debt make most sense. So again, I could be in a position where a year from now, I'm in front of you, if you would, if we look at that, and there may be some other pieces that just have not ripened, if you would. So again, it's constantly changing the way the market looks, the way your debt looks to the final maturity. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, with that being said, over the last several weeks, we've lost a little ground, and rates have actually started to bump up. So little that you really can't tell there on the far right-hand side. But it's starting to move a little bit, which is why we would like to try to move as quickly as possible to capture this savings. So with that said, I mentioned earlier there are 5 different series. 4 of them are in the 2009 bond issue that we did. 1 of them is in the 2010 bond issue that we did. Again, all told, they average an interest rate of a little over 5%. If rates were to hold, we're talking about refinancing slightly at or below 3%. So again, that's different than the 3% present value. That's the actual potential new interest rate on average, which would be very substantial. Again, we don't know what it's going to look like. We just like your blessing to move forward. With that being said, just the last page, if you would, is the schedule. So what we're hoping is that, as Dr. Patton indicated, back on the 23rd, she alerted you to the fact that we would be coming. Here we are tonight. We understand tomorrow night, of course, is your formal meeting. There's a resolution that we would ask that would be approved. That's the only thing that's necessary. No public hearing is required because we're not talking about any new borrowing. This is simply exchanging existing debt for lower interest rate debts. So there's no new borrowing, no public hearing required. With that being said, we would move very quickly to move towards meeting with the rating agencies. What we're anticipating is to talk with them by telephone. We would like to get them down here over the next several months. One has already said they will come in May. That won't slow us down, but we just think there's so many good things to show since they've been here a couple of years ago that we want to show them the progress that Portsmouth has made. I would point out they do not charge us to come to visit. It's no more costly to have them come visit. That's just part of their due diligence, if you would, in staying on top of a city like Portsmouth. So we're thinking that may occur after things move forward here in the May-June time frame if they can come. One is already committed to come, which is Moody's, and they've talked about coming around the time they're here for a national conference that happens to be located in the Virginia region. So that would be in early May. We'll keep you posted. And finally, if we can get those credit ratings sometime in early to mid-April, the hope would be to try to sell refinancing bonds if the market works around May, early May. The last thing I'd point out is this. To the extent that rates move against us, we would be then shelf ready, if you would. We would incur very few dollars, if any, to be shelf ready. We could incur some dollars with the rating agencies. A lot of that would ultimately get absorbed if no refinancing occurs when we have to do some new money, which is based upon your capital program. And then again, that's when we would in fact absorb those costs if no refinancing occurs. So with that being said, happy to answer any questions. I would underscore that this is a refinancing that we would, again, have those savings over time. We've advised, since you don't want to count your chickens before they hatch, that with regard to your upcoming budget, no savings has been programmed into 2017 and beyond because, again, we won't know in time whether or not the refinancing ultimately produces savings. So that's at least our recommendation to you and to staff, is not to count on any of that. It would just be a positive if it does occur, and we'd be back to tell you that. Dr. Patton, anything?
Sounds
That's a-
No, sir, it's actually, David, it's been about 4 years since we brought them here and did the bus tour. Just for your information, when we brought them here, there was
Great
nothing over at the old IC Norcom site. We kind of shared with them. We rode through the city for maybe about 4 hours, stopping at different places, and yeah, that's a great idea, letting them know that here's what we said we were going to do, we're doing it, to be able to solidify some of the comments, because we get good comments every time we go to New York with them, with a lot of the updates that we give them. So that's a great idea to bring them here.
And you may recall, yes, I'm sorry, Councilman.
Mr.
Moody.
David, at 1.5 or 6 is over, that savings is over what period of
It's going to be
time?
over basically about 15 to 20-year plus period. So we will ultimately, I say, because we've got an 09 issue, we've got a 10 issue. Each of those are basically 20 years, as I recall. So again, what we've got left, and we're just going to space them out. At least that's the plan. We can work closer with Alice and staff about exactly taking those savings and how, but we'll know more of that again as we get very close to the financing. What we're anticipating, just so you know, is we would put this financing out to bid. It would be we call a competitive sale. And so at a certain date and time, ideally, if it's the week of May 2nd, it may, let's say, be at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, more than likely, and anyone and everybody that's pre-qualified, a banking institution, anyone that, again, has the wherewithal to bid on something at upward of $55 million has the ability to put in a bid. Whatever the best bid is, meaning the lowest all-in interest rate, that's the winner, and that's how it gets set. And those rates stay until the closing, which is typically a few weeks later. Get all the paperwork pulled together.
Very good.
Any other questions or comments? All right, sir. Sounds great. We'll look forward to that resolution
right.
tomorrow and get that done.
Yes, it's on the agenda for tomorrow, City Manager's report.
All right, very
Mayor,
good.
Vice Mayor, members of City Council, this concludes our presentations for the evening's public work session. We will start here again tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Good job.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a safe trip back, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right, you're adjourned.
Yeah, I never.
Beat it with a stick.